Hello everybody, welcome to jurycentral.com online classes for law exams. So today I will be discussing with you the important Supreme Court judgments of the month April to May 2021. So let us start. So the first one is in which it was held that freedom of speech and expression extends to reporting the proceedings of judicial institutions as well. So the case citation is Chief Election Commissioner of India versus M.R. Vijay Bhaskar. So in this case, the Election Commission of India had sought a direction restraining the media from reporting on court proceedings after Madras High Court made certain oral remarks attributing responsibility to the Election Commission for the present surge in the number of cases of COVID-19 due to their failure to implement appropriate COVID-19 safety measures and protocol during the elections. The bench of Dr. D.Y. Chandrachud and M.R. Shah justices has refused to restrain the media from reporting on court proceedings and made a strong case in favor of open court and freedom of press. In their words, this court stands as a staunch proponent of the freedom of the media to report court proceedings. This we believe is integral to the freedom of speech and expression of those who speak, of those who wish to hear and to be heard, and above all, in holding the judiciary accountable to the values which justify its existence as a constitutional institution. Then the second one is, the case is Gautam Navlekha versus National Investigation Agency. In this, it was held that under section 167 CRPC, it will be open to courts to order house arrest in appropriate cases. In a major verdict, the bench of UU Lalit and KM Joseph justices has held that it is open for courts to order house arrest under section 167 CRPC in appropriate cases. The order comes as a milestone for curbing the problem of overcrowded prisons and high cost for their maintenance. So under section 167, the term of house arrest isn't found. So we will see in the next slide what does it mean. It held that custody under section 167 CRPC has been understood as police custody and judicial custody, with judicial custody being conflated to jail custody ordinarily. The concept of house arrest as part of custody under section 167 hasn't engaged the courts. However, when the issue has come into focus and noticing its ingredients, it involves custody which falls under section 167. The bench observed that under section 167 in appropriate cases, it will be open to courts to order house arrest as well. The bench observed that in order to house arrest a person, courts can consider criteria like age, health, condition and the antecedents of the accused, the nature of the crime, the need for other forms of custody and the ability to enforce the terms of the house arrest. Although the term house arrest doesn't find its place under section 167, but by this judgment, Supreme Court has included house arrest under section 167, even for deciding on cases relating to bail. Then third, judges need to be extra careful while conducting criminal trials relating to dowry deaths. This has been held by the Supreme Court in the case of Satbir Singh versus State of Haryana. In a case relating to dowry death, the bench of N.V. Ramana, Chief Justice, and Aniruddha Bose, Justice, has held that judges need to be extra careful while conducting criminal trials relating to section 304B IPC. The court went on to summarize the law under section 304B IPC read with section 113B Evidence Act and the guidelines to be followed by the courts while conducting trials in such cases. The court noticed that often trial courts record the statement of an accused under section 313 CRPC in a very casual and cursory manner without specifically questioning the accused as to his defense. So under section 313, court has the power to examine the accused. Then the directions. Section 304B IPC must be interpreted keeping in mind the legislative intent to curb the social evil of bride burning and dowry demand. Second, the prosecution must at first establish the existence of the necessary ingredients for constituting an offence under section 304B IPC. Once these ingredients are satisfied, the rebuttable presumption of causality provided under section 113B Evidence Act operates against the accused. Third, the phrase soon before as a appearing in section 304B IPC cannot be constituted to mean immediately before, the prosecution must establish existence of proximate and live link between the dowry death and cruelty or harassment for dowry demand by the husband or his relatives. So this has to be established before moving ahead under section 304B or prosecuting a person under section under the same section and section 113B of Evidence Act. Then fourth, National Task Force for Allocation of Oxygen to States. So this is the direction given by Supreme Court in the case of Union of India versus Rakesh Malhotra. With the number of COVID-19 cases skyrocketing and nation facing severe shortage of oxygen leading to several deaths, the bench of Dr. D.Y. Chandrachud and M.R. Shah justices has set up a 12-member national task force to formulate a methodology for the scientific allocation of oxygen for the states and UTs. So this judgment has been held on 6th of May 2021 at a time when there was a peak in deaths due to oxygen shortages of COVID patients. Why? There is a need to ensure that the allotments of medical oxygen to the states and UTs is made on a scientific, rational and equitable basis. At the same time, it must allow for flexibility to meet unforeseen demands due to emergencies which may arise within the allocated territories. An expert body consisting of renowned national experts with diverse experience in health institutions will provide a public health response to the pandemic on the basis of a scientific approach. So a committee has been formed by the Supreme Court which will advise the government on the basis of scientific approach for equal distribution of medical supplies. Then the directions the task force will, so these are the duties casted upon the task force. So the task force will formulate a methodology for the scientific allocation of oxygen to the states and UTs. The union government has made its suggestions on the possible names for inclusion in the composition of the task force while leaving its final composition to the court. And the task force will also facilitate a public health response to the pandemic based on scientific and specialized domain knowledge. It will enable the decision makers to have inputs which go beyond finding ad hoc solutions to the present problems. And last, provide the union government with inputs and strategies for meeting the challenges of the pandemic on a transparent and professional basis in the present and in future. So the main task of this task force will be to assist the government in allocation of oxygen to the states among other medical supplies. Then fifth, nothing wrong with the IBC notification treating personal guarantors differently from other categories of individuals. So this has been held in the case of Lalit Kumar Jain versus Union of India. So adding to the series of verdicts on the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016, the bench of L. Nageshwara Rao and S. Ravindra Bhatt has upheld the legality of the notification dated 15th of 11/2019, which notified provisions of Part 3 of the Code only in respect of personal guarantors to corporate debtors, and has held that approval of a resolution plan does an ipso facto discharge a personal guarantor to corporate debtor of her or his liabilities under the contract of guarantee. So this notification has been challenged and which has been upheld by the Supreme Court in the following case, and it is regarding to insolvency and bankruptcy cases. Then 6, no coercive measures to be taken. Can high courts pass such blanket orders while refusing to quash investigation? So this has been the issue in the case of Niharika Infrastructure Private Limited versus State of Maharashtra, in which the case was relating to quashing of an FIR. So let us see. Dealing with a case where Bombay High Court had granted interim protection from arrest to an accused facing serious charges for the offences under section 406, 420, 465, 468, 471 and 120B of the Penal Code and had ordered no coercive measures to be adopted taken. The 3-judge bench of Dr. D.Y. Chandrachud, M.R. Shah and Sanjeev Khanna justices deprecated the order of the High Court and held that such a blanket interim order passed by the High Court affects the powers of of the investigating agency to investigate into the cognizable offences, which otherwise is a statutory right or duty of the police officer under the relevant provisions of the CRPC. So court has actually criticized the method taken by the High Court, in which it had ordered an interim protection from arrest to an accused facing serious charges under the said offences. Then the court held granting of such blanket order would not only adversely affect the investigation but would have far-reaching implications for maintaining the rule of law. Where the investigation is stayed for a long time, even if the stay is ultimately vacated, the subsequent investigation may not be very fruitful for the simple reason that the evidence may no longer be available. So far as the order of not to arrest and no coercive steps till the final report charge sheet is filed and during the course of investigation or not to arrest till the investigation is completed, passed while dismissing the quashing petitions under section 482 of CRPC or under article 226 of the Constitution of India, and having opined that no case is made out to quash the FIR complaint is concerned, the same is wholly permissible. So according to the Supreme Court, it actually said that when the quashing petition has been dismissed but an interim protection is granted simultaneously, is not permissible, is not wholly permissible under CRPC, because in exceptional circumstances only the investigation can be stayed and even the case can be quashed under section 482 CRPC. What must be kept in mind before passing an interim order of staying further investigation pending the quashing petition? So let us see. Before passing an interim order of staying further investigation pending the quashing petition under section 482 CRPC and or article 226 of the Constitution of India, the High Court has to apply the very parameters which are required to be considered while quashing the proceedings in exercise of powers under section 482. So it said, in a given case, there may be allegations of abuse of process of law by converting a civil dispute into a criminal dispute only with a view to pressurize the accused. Similarly, in a given case, the complaint itself on the face of it can be said to be barred by law. The allegations in the FIR complaint may not at all disclose the commission of a cognizable offence. In such a case and in exceptional cases with circumscription, the High Court may stay the further investigation. Like I have already told you, that under exceptional circumstances only the FIR can be quashed or the investigation can be stayed, but it should not be done in a mechanical way. Then the directions. Police has a statutory right and duty under the relevant provisions of the CRPC contained in chapter 14 of the code to investigate into cognizable offences. Court would not thwart any investigation into the cognizable offences. However, in cases where no cognizable offence or offence of any kind is disclosed in the first information report, the court will not permit an investigation to go on. The power of quashing should be exercised sparingly with circumspection in the rarest of rare cases. So why I am discussing the case in length? Because this case law is very important for your upcoming competitive examinations, whether it is LLM examination or any other examination. Then seventh, Maratha quota law held unconstitutional. This has been held by Supreme Court. I have already discussed this case law in length in another video. So do watch that video. I'll share the link in the description box below, in which I have discussed with you in length the issues involved and the main decision which has been held in this case. So case citation is Dr. Jayashree Lakshman Rao Patil versus the Chief Minister and others. Civil appeal number so and so. A constitution bench of the Supreme Court comprising Justices Ashok Bhushan, A.S. Nazir, L. Nageshwara Rao, Hemant Gupta and S. Ravindra Bhatt, while striking down the Maratha quota, held there were no exceptional circumstances justifying the grant of reservation to Marathas in excess of 50% ceiling limit as a socially and economically backward class. The bench also held that there was no need to revisit the 50% ceiling limit on reservation laid down by the 9-judge bench decision in Indira Sahni versus Union of India, so and so. The bench observed that neither the Gaikwad Commission nor the High Court have made out any situation for exceeding the ceiling of 50% reservation for the Marathas. So Maratha quota law was held unconstitutional because it is breaching the 50% ceiling which has been fixed in the Indira Sahni's case. Then question number 8, as nation gasps breathe, Supreme Court calls for even-handed distribution of COVID essentials like oxygen, remdesivir, asks center to submit a national plan. So in this case, to manage the shortcomings of this medical essential supplies, the Supreme Court has asked the center to submit a national plan for an equitable distribution of all the medical facilities. So the case is actually suo motu case in rate distribution of essential supplies and services during pandemic. The three-judge bench of S.A. Bobde, C.J. Chief Justice and L. Nageshwara Rao and S. Ravindra Bhatt justices has taken suo motu cognizance of the grim situation of the country hit by the second wave of COVID-19 pandemic and has asked the central government to report on first is the existence or otherwise a requirement of setting up of a coordinating body that would consider allocation of COVID resources in a consultative manner with the involvement of concerned state and 3 union territories. Second, considering declaration of essential medicines and medical equipments including the drugs, oxygen and vaccination as essential commodities in relation to COVID. Third, in respect of coordination of logistical support for interstate and intrastate transportation and distribution of the above resources. So for all of the reasons, the center has asked, the Supreme Court has asked the center to submit a national plan. So due to the sudden surge in the number of COVID patients and mortality, the nation is witnessing a shortage of essential COVID resources such as oxygen and drugs like remdesivir. So like in the month of May, we must have seen the news, the surge in the the surge in the deaths relating to COVID-19 patients, and this is the reason why Supreme Court has intervened in its own and actually asked the center to submit a national plan for allocation of the medical necessities among the states and to formulate a plan how to manage the necessities. While drugs, oxygen and vaccination availability and distribution are being carried out by governments including the central government according to protocols established by the health authorities, the court noticed that a certain amount of panic has been generated and people have invoked the jurisdiction of several high courts in the country seeking various reliefs such as Delhi, Bombay, Sikkim, MP, Calcutta, Allahabad and Gujarat. So these are the cities which were worstly affected due to shortage of oxygen supplies and drugs like remdesivir. Then the court was hence of the prima facie view that the distribution of these essential services and supplies must be done in an even-handed manner according to the advice of the health authorities, which undoubtedly take into account relevant factors like severity, susceptibility, the number of people affected and the local availability of resources. It hence asked the central government to place before it a national plan for dealing with the above services and supplies during pandemic. Then the next one is rule of alternate remedy and maintainability of writ petitions under Article 226 of the Constitution. So this was the issue, and let us see the case Radha Krishna Industries versus State of Himachal Pradesh. In an appeal against the Himachal Pradesh High Court judgment which dismissed a petition after noticing that the appellant has an alternative remedy available, the bench of Dr. D.Y. Chandrachud and M.R. Shah justices has summarized the principles related to the maintainability of a writ petition before High Courts. The court held that an alternate remedy by itself doesn't divest the High Court of its power under Article 226 of the Constitution in an appropriate case, though ordinarily a writ petition should not be entertained when an efficacious alternate remedy is provided by law. Then 11. So I hope you understood what it actually trying to say. It says that even if an alternate remedy is available to Article 226, but still that doesn't cripple the High Court in exercising its power under Article 226. Then 10th, no blood or breath analyzer test proving drunk driving. Insurer may still establish a case for inclusion from liability. So it says the Supreme Court in this court has said that even if no test is provided, even if no test is is available, which actually establishes whether the person is drunk or not, insurer may still establish a case for exclusion from liability. So even insurer can still exempt themselves from the liability which is casted on them. So the case citation is IFCO Tokyo General Insurance Company Limited versus Pearl Beverages. In an interesting case, a 3-judge bench of UU Lalit, Indira Banerjee and KM Joseph justices have said that while in case where there is a blood test or breath test which indicates that there is no consumption at all, and undoubtedly it would not be open to the insurer to set up the case of exclusion. However, the absence of test may not disable the insurer from establishing a case for exclusion from liability on ground of drunk driving. So let us understand what is this test is about. So section 185 of Motor Vehicles Act creates a criminal offence dealing with driving by a drunken person or by a person under the influence of drugs. The section mandates the proving of the objective criteria presence of alcohol exceeding 30 milligram per 100 ml of blood. So suppose if in your breath analyzer test, if the presence of alcohol is more than 30 milligram per 100 milliliter of your blood, then it is established that it's a case of drunken driving or the person is drunk. Then 11. Rohingya refugees not to be deported unless a procedure prescribed for such deportation is followed, held by the Supreme Court in the case of Muhammad Salimullah versus Union of India. The 3-judge bench of S.A. Bobde, Chief Justice, and A.S. Bopanna and V. Ramasubramanian justices has directed that Rohingyas in Jammu on whose behalf the present application is filed shall not be deported unless the procedure prescribed for such deportation is followed. So, in its word, the court said while India is not a signatory to the Refugee Convention and hence serious objections are raised whether Article 51C of the Constitution can be pressed into service unless India is a party to or ratified a convention. There is, however, no doubt that the national courts can draw inspiration from international convention treaties so long as they are not in conflict with the municipal law. So, however, India is not a signatory to the refugee conventions, but still the court has went on to held that national courts can draw inspirations from international convention on treaties which are not in conflict with the municipal law. Then 12. Can there be presumption of Hindu joint family property for business activity carried out by Karta in a tenanted premises? Supreme Court answers this question in the case of Kiran Devi versus Bihar State Sunni Waqf Board. So this question is actually relating to family law, and these are recent judgment. These are reason why I am discussing this case law. The 3-judge bench of Ashok Bhushan, S.A. Nazir and Hemant Gupta justices has held that there can be presumption of Hindu joint family property if the property has been acquired by the male member or if the same has been treated as joint Hindu family, but no such presumption is attached to a business activity carried out by an individual in a tenanted premises. And even if a male member had taken premises on rent, he is a tenant in his individual capacity and not as Karta of Hindu undivided family in the absence of any evidence that Karta was doing the business for and on behalf of joint Hindu family. 13. Protection of heaviest flying bird, the Great Indian Bustard. Supreme Court emphasizes the need to adopt ecocentric approach, issues direction. So this is a very important judgment from environmental law, in environmental law. And in this case, the Supreme Court has actually formulated certain guidelines and also issued directions for the protection of the heaviest flying bird, the Great Indian Bustard, which is almost extinct. So let us see. The 3-judge bench comprising of S.A. Bobde, Chief Justice A.S. Bopanna and B. Ramasubramanian justices addressed the instant PIL addressing the issue of protection of 2 species of birds, namely the Great Indian Bustard, also known as, in short, in abbreviated form, it is known as GIB, and the Lizard Florican, which is on the verge of extinction. The bench remarked, keeping in view the sustainable development concept and on striking a balance, the protection of the rare species of birds is essential to be made, the effort being to save every bird while at the same time allowing transmission of power in an appropriate manner. Then the directions are very important. the government shall take steps forthwith to install diverters pending consideration of the conversion of the overhead cables as exist on today in the priority and potential GIB area into underground power lines. So the Supreme Court first of all has given direction to install diverters to divert the birds from getting attached or from getting tangled in the overhead cables till it is shifted into underground power lines. Then in all such cases where it is found feasible to convert the overhead cables into underground power lines, the same shall be undertaken and completed within a period of 1 year until such time the diverter shall be hung from the existing. And even Supreme Court has also given the maximum time of 1 year to shift the overhead cables into underground power lines. Until then diverters has to be installed for conservation of the habitat to secure the safety of the eggs laid by the birds. The area earmarked shall be fenced and protected from invasion by predators so that the eggs laid in these areas are protected. The power supply line regarding the underground passages to be made should also avoid these areas. Then 14, again very important case law, whether pre-FIR inquiry is permissible against public servant in corruption matters. So this is the question that has been raised before the Supreme Court in the case of Charan Singh versus State of Maharashtra. So in this, the division bench comprising of Dhananjay Y. Chandrachud and M.R. Shah justices addressed the instant appeal challenging the validity of notice sent to the appellant by Anti-Corruption Bureau regarding pre-FIR open inquiry against him. So here the legality of pre-FIR inquiry has been challenged by the petitioner. So the court held an inquiry is held and are conducted after following the procedure as per Maharashtra State Anti-Corruption and Prohibition Intelligence Bureau Manual. It cannot be said that the same is illegal and or the police officer Anti-Corruption Bureau has no jurisdiction and or authority and or power at all to conduct such an inquiry at pre-registration of FIR stage. So in short, let me tell you, the court said yes, pre-FIR inquiry can be done in matters relating to corruption, and there is no illegality in doing that. Then 15, ad hoc judges to be appointed to deal with unprecedented pendency of cases in High Court. Supreme Court issues guidelines and trigger points for activation of dormant Article 224A. So let us see. So in the case of Lok Prahari versus Union of India, the Supreme Court activating the dormant Article 224A of the Constitution, the three-judge bench of S.A. Bobde, Chief Justice, and Sanjay Kishan Kaul and Surya Kant justices has issued some general guidelines for the appointment of ad hoc judges. Ad hoc judges are actually temporary judges to deal with the unprecedented situation arising from the backlog of cases pending in the High Courts, which has now crossed the figure of 57 lakh, coupled with the consistent ratio of vacancies of almost 40%. So, considering the vacancies that have crossed 40% in a higher judiciary and the cases which has crossed the 57 lakh, these are reason why Supreme Court has decided to appoint ad hoc judges to dispose of these matters in a timely bound manner. Article 224A deals with appointment of retired judges at sittings of High Courts. So these are the guidelines. Trigger point for activation of Article 224A. What are the trigger points? If the vacancies are more than 20% of the sanctioned strength, the cases in a particular category are pending for 5 years. Third, more than 10% of the backlog of pending cases are over 5 years old. Fourth, the percentage of the rate of disposal is lower than the institution of the cases either in a particular subject matter or generally in the court. Fifth, even if there are not many old cases pending, but depending on the jurisdiction, a situation of mounting AR is likely to arise if the rate of disposal is consistently lower than the rate of filing over a period of a year or more. And there's an embargoing situation also. That means there are some situations in which the Article 224A cannot be activated. So the circumstances are, if recommendations have not been made for more than 20% of the regular vacancies, the trigger for recourse to Article 224A would not arise. So So the recommendations are done by a panel of the judges, phone number of judges. So there is a panel, and they actually decide on the judges to be appointed in the high courts. And if they decide that the 20%, appointments cannot be made more than 20%, then in that case Article 2 to 4 would not arise. So this is the end of this session. I have discussed all the important case laws of the month April to May 2021. I would also be discussing with you the latest Supreme Court judgments of the the remaining months, which is January to March, very soon. So I hope you all have liked this session. Do not forget to give a big thumbs up, and also like, share, subscribe to the channel. Till we meet the next time. Thank you and have a nice day.